Well, firstly, Fox News is a disgraceful hate-for-profit racket with no redeeming qualities. This is not going to be one of those videos where I pretend that there are two legitimate sides to an issue, because there aren't. While all for-profit media is biased in some form or another, they are not all equally as biased.
Are you sure about that? Because I can provide you a lot of evidence where the legacy media has lied very blatantly and has said some very racist things towards white people. At the most, Fox News is no worse than the legacy media. But I would actually argue that it's currently better right now. I would even go so far as to say that it might even be better than the legacy media, because they have multiple people who give multiple different views and opinions on things. That doesn't mean there aren't crazies and people who will twist and turn things on their portion of Fox News, but there are some who will try to give less bias. Fox News is made up of a multitude of people, some who are center-right, some who are conservatives, some who are neocons, and some who are libertarian. So there's a multitude of views on Fox News. While I don't think it's quite the same with the left-wing media. From what I can tell, the left-wing media pretty much has the same views, or at least they show the same views. They hardly seem to ever disagree with one another. But with Fox News and the other right-wing media, I see disagreements. I see countering viewpoints. I can't say the same for the left-wing media. Fox News has done some really stupid things. But on that end, it's no worse than the rest of the mainstream media.
Fox News at this point in 2019 for the most part only serves the agenda of the Republican Party to distract their base with nonsense like kneeling football players.
That's a legitimate thing to complain about because those people were protesting something that was not true. And it kind of was a big event because it's one of the most popular sports in the United States. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So when a star player does something that's controversial, it kind of is newsworthy.
Or whipping up white racial panic so they don't pay too much attention to the Republicans' real agenda, which is of course serving the mega wealthy.
Yeah, bullshit. That's partially false. The reason why I say that is because there are some Republicans who run their states like a moderate Democrat. And then there are some Republicans who run their state much more economically right-wing. So you're mostly wrong. As for the Democratic Party, well, their states that they run are very regulated. And that mostly serves the ultra-wealthy and large corporations.
It's also the reason your uncle can't stop talking about Hillary Clinton selling uranium to Russia over Thanksgiving dinner, while you sit there in silence, trying to remember the good times you had together before Fox News and Facebook melted his brain.
And that isn't something you shouldn't talk about? What about the other controversies that Hillary Clinton has committed? You guys were non-stop talking about Trump and how you wanted to impeach him, when there was zero evidence to support your claims, and there's still zero evidence to support your claims, and he was correct, for the most part. But when I say the most part, it's because it's not for the reasons you think it is. There is a huge racial divide in the country currently, and that's mostly coming from the left. I have a video talking about this called Racism in America. Anyways, my point is that the racism coming from the left is towards mostly white people or people of color who do not support a left-wing or Democrat agenda. Those are the people who are receiving malevolent racism. Now, for benevolent racism, that's, again, mostly coming from the left. And that's towards people of color, at least ones who support the Democrat agenda or left-wing agenda.
Over the last couple of months, there have been multiple appearances on Fox News by two people named Gina Keating and Michael Flaherty, who just launched a podcast called Raven 23, Presumption of Guilt. But before we go any further, I should clarify that this is about much more than some shitty podcast. After seeing this segment, I fell down a rabbit hole, and it turns out this segment is much more relevant to current politics than you might initially think. Anyway, let's take a look.
Back in 2007, 4 Blackwater contractors were tasked with defending American diplomats at the height of the Iraq War. Remember, 2007, dangerous times. The men were found guilty of killing Iraqi civilians, but they maintained their innocence, saying they were ambushed. Our next guests are telling the Blackwater story in the podcast, the brand new podcast out today, Raven 23, Presumption of Guilt. The creators and producers, Michael Flaherty and Gina Keating, join us now. Thank you both for being here. I've learned a lot about this story. Listen, this show's covered Eddie Gallagher, Matt Goldstein, Clint Lawrence, guys in prison for things, for questionable situations. This one's as bad as it gets.
So it's pretty clear what Fox News presents this as. 4 guys questionably imprisoned for actions committed overseas. The real meat of this segment comes when one of the producers attempts to explain what these guys have been prosecuted for.
From her accounts and from what I've been reading up on this, it does seem like there might have been evidence to say that they were innocent. Or at the very least, there's evidence to say that it wasn't deliberate murder, that it maybe was manslaughter.
Explain what happened. Raven 23 is the call sign of these 4 contractors. What happened in Iraq that day?
They were called to clear a route so that a diplomat who was at a location that had just been bombed could come through and go safely to the green zone.
So that person had just been bombed and they're evacuating.
Exactly.
And this is in September when there was an average of 2 attacks a day, and they had developed a great new technique where they would detonate a car bomb. People would swarm to go protect people, and then they would ambush them.
Secondary ambush.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they get to this traffic circle, Nisour Square, and are immediately fired upon. And then a car comes through the stop traffic, and they believe it's a car bomb. They fire at it. They neutralize the threat. And then one of their vehicles is disabled. They tow it out, go back to the green zone, don't think anything about it, because this sort of thing happens every day in Iraq.
Another day on the job in Iraq. I was in Iraq 05, 06. Encountered situations just like this. Split-second decisions. Violence happened fast. Enemy using nasty tactics.
That's odd. From what Gina Keating is saying, it seems like there isn't even any space where these people could have theoretically acted criminally. They enter a square, are fired upon, and take out a car that they believe to be a car bomb. Apparently, this happened every single day in Iraq, and the Fox News host even reiterates that he encountered situations just like this. Nothing out of the ordinary, it would seem. Where it gets more interesting, though, is when you realize what's omitted, because Gina Keating does not say that the car they believe to be a car bomb was not a car bomb, but was driven by a 19-year-old medical student. And if you're unfamiliar with this fateful day in Iraq, this is where you probably suspect there's something fishy about this story as it's presented, and you would be right to do so.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been. You are forgetting that there are people who commit jihad, where they sacrifice themselves to kill others.
Because this everyday occurrence that there is definitely nothing special about went down in history as the Nisour Square Massacre, which Gina Keating calls the Nisour Square Incident on their podcast, by the way. In short, what Gina Keating described as neutralizing the threat ended with the death of 17 Iraqi civilians, one among them a 9-year-old boy who died of a gunshot wound to the head.
Yeah, and jihadis often use children and women as shields. They also use hospitals, schools. They use these things because they want to kill people. They don't give a about other people. They just want to commit jihad. There are Muslims who do that kind of
None of that is mentioned in this segment. In fact, you could come away from this not even being aware that there were any victims, besides the 4 noble mercenaries, of course. So just for the record, Gina Keating's account of this massacre is greatly skewed to make the people in question look innocent. For instance, the claim that the Blackwater mercenaries were immediately fired upon entering Nisour Square does not corroborate with eyewitness accounts and could not be proven in court. Later in the segment, Gina Keating alleges the investigation was outsourced to an Iraqi jihadist, obviously trying to discredit the findings of the Iraqi investigation into the massacre.
2 things. 1, you're going to trust the Iraqi government? Seriously? The Iraqi government. The other thing is, eyewitness testimony is, 1, very bad. Eyewitnesses are often very wrong or get things mixed up. The other part of that is that those people might have lied. I wouldn't put it past them. If there are Muslims who are willing to kill themselves and use children and women and hospitals and schools as shields to kill others, I wouldn't put it past a few of them to possibly lie.
So my parents used to be like diehard Democrats, like voted for Bill Clinton, voted for Jimmy Carter and all that. And when Obama became president, they stopped voting Democrat. I think it has a lot to do with his race, but
Interesting.
They argue that it's not.
Then you should take their word for it. You're just going to assume they're racist because they didn't vote for the prior president and that prior president just happened to be black? That's racist of you to assume that to start with. You should take your parents' word for it that they just didn't vote for him because they didn't like what he stood for. Don't be a racist to your parents.
But they also started watching like Fox News religiously. Like, I mean, it is on 24/7. And my thing is like my mom used to watch more like moderate people on Fox News. I don't know if you could say there's moderate.
There are most definitely moderate people. In fact, I would say most of Fox News is moderate because most of them are not economically far on the right. And most of them I don't think are really authoritarian. If anything, the majority of extremists are on the legacy media, where they say racist things about white people and basically pander to China and advocate for taking away people's right to bear arms. And they also are pretty far left when it comes to regulations.
But then she stopped because she used to say, oh, they're just lying. They don't know. Democrats are all these socialists. They're trying to take our guns, all this.
They are very much so regulationists. Socialists, not so much. They're more so regulationists, as I said. But wanting to take away our guns? Hell yeah.
And then now she watches like Tucker Carlson, which she used to complain about how he was too right-wing.
I don't think he's very far right-wing. At most, he might be a moderate.
Did they start becoming conservative because of something else and then they sought out the right-wing media? Or was it the right-wing media that made them become more radical?
Oh yeah, so radical when you want to have the right to bear arms, have freedom of speech, and be able to make a living and run your own business. That's so radical.
I think I remember she started watching Fox News was because we used to watch The View.
Now, The View is definitely radical. And they are a bunch of crazy.
And the incident with Bill O'Reilly happened where he called like Muslims killed, like did 9/11 and all that.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, oh, that she didn't agree with it at the time, but she was like, oh, I want to see what this is all about. And by doing that, she ended up going into this rabbit hole of like...
because Muslims did do 9/11.
Like I was talking about justice reform and how like a lot of people aren't guilty but end up going to jail.
That's false.
And she's like, that's not true. And I was like, okay, well, the FBI said all this. And she's like, that doesn't matter. That's just not true. That's a lie.
Well, your mom is right that it's not true. And there's no FBI thing that says that it is somehow true. If anything, FBI stats say the exact opposite thing of what you think. Because the majority of murders are committed by black men. Also, black men and also Hispanic men commit a majority of other violent crimes. And so because of that, the areas where there is more violent crime, those areas get policed more. And therefore, more black and Hispanic men get arrested for less violent or non-violent crimes.
Has your mom notably, like for example, was she, I'm just giving examples, I'm not saying this, was she not homophobic and now she is, or was she not seemingly racist and now she says racist things? Like, have you seen a change even on social stuff like that?
So like, before when I was little, she used to say, I don't care who gets married, blah, blah, blah. But then she, like, by like 2016 that I finally came out, she started to change and was like, gay marriage is only between a man and a woman, and nothing, like, that can't happen.
Saying you think marriage should be between a man and a woman isn't homophobic. And this is coming from a gay dude who wants to get married to his boyfriend and have and raise kids with him. Do I think it's right? No. Do I think it's homophobic? No.
So I think it's more because of Fox News and all that. So, like, my thing is like, I hear a lot of people say, like, stuff like, oh, well, you know, if you give them facts, it's like, turn them or whatever. It's like, no, you're correct when you say, like, Trump supporters will not change. Like,
for one, that's false, partially. I was a Trump supporter. My opinions changed. I'm no longer a Trump supporter, more so for different reasons than you would want. But either way, yeah, Trump supporters can change their mind. And some do. Now, there are people who are Trump supporters who will never change their mind no matter what. But that's on all sides of the political spectrum. And I would still say that the majority of crazies who will never change their mind are people like you.
Listen, I'm very sorry to hear about this. It sounds really difficult, but I really appreciate you sharing it with me and the audience today.
Oh, poor her. Her parents are so racist. So racist. Even though she provides no evidence to support her claim. And she doesn't even say they said a particular racist thing and just says they're racist because they didn't vote for Obama. And because they watch so much Fox News and other right-wing media. Cut the you racist jack. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a like, subscribe, share it, comment down below, and tell me what you thought. Help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see y'all later.